Okay, so the title of the concert was I Still Believe. And she sang that song towards the end of the concert, her song called I Still Believe. And when she started singing that song, it was everything that I needed right at that moment. And somehow the Lord just changed something in my heart and something broke off of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I recommitted myself to the Lord that night. Now, I got saved on March 14th in 1982. The concert was March 14th, and I got recommitted to the Lord on March 14th. I don't remember what year it was. Oh, it was 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, it wasn't. It was 2013. Anyway, so I recommitted my life, and my friend, when we left, she said, okay, are you going to promise me that you're going to go to church this Sunday? And I said, okay, I promise. So I went to the church that I knew that I wanted to go to, and I knew people there. And they when I was in Alaska, there's this guy named Daryl Lindley that would come, and he would take 7 stories from the body of the church of people's testimonies, and then he would put them in a book, and then that book, it was a gift that we would give to people when they came for the first time to the church. Well, I was in the original book of Church on the Rock in Alaska. I was one of the 7 people in the original book with my testimony about forgiveness. And so when I went to church that Sunday, Daryl Lindley was speaking, and he was sharing about their first book that they were going to be putting out. And I, again, would just sat there and wept the whole time because it was about how God forgives and how God can change our entire lives. And how when we share our testimony, it helps other people get through their life, because if I can do it, so can you. Yeah. And so that's what happened. And I mean, truly something was completely broken off of me.
Yeah. Well, you navigated a whole bunch of 3 marriages and coping mechanism and being feeling feelings of unforgiveness and unworthiness, and came to Christ. You came to Christ, but then you continue to come to Christ, and Christ continued to work through you and in and through you, and you had a wonderful circle with all of that. That just really demonstrates a resilient heart of willingness to keep coming before the Lord, to keep walking the path, to keep moving forward. And, I want to hear about Bill.
Okay.
Like the love story, that's all of the kind of intercession, but like the big thing about like this whole resilient heart and healing and moving through everything is the resiliency of true love after that. So I want to hear all about Bill.
All right. So after that, I had an opportunity to get some really intense counseling, and I had a chance to truly forgive all the things that my ex had done.
Yeah.
And I had to change the way I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
100% understand that.
Yeah, but I was able to forgive him, and that was through. I mean, like I did 2 4-hour sessions of counseling to get through that, and that was in 2013.
And did you have the life coach at that time?
Okay. No. I just had my 2 good girlfriends and the body of Christ.
And up to that point, you had done a significant amount of counseling. Therapy.
Yes.
With different people. So I think you referred to when we were together that you'd been in therapy your whole life.
Yeah.
And here we are, still here, kicking off, with all of that. Like, wow. And I hear that with so many ladies is there's been 30 years of therapy or, different types of work that they've been doing throughout their life, and they still don't feel worthy. So you had been to intensive therapy. You went to that Romans Way,
Yep.
2 4-hour sessions with that. And then did you meet Bill at church or?
Well, we met on christianmingle.com, and we went on. He asked me to meet him at a restaurant for lunch, and so we met there like 2 days after we started talking, and we met for lunch, and we sat across from each other, and I just looked in his eyes, and I just thought, now this is a man I could love for the rest of my life. And I could tell that he was not going to be coming with a lot of baggage, and he had been born to 2 parents that were blind, and so from a young age he helped his parents do things, and so he just had a really kind and compassionate heart. He wasn't playing any games. I could tell right away that he was who he said he was. That's what.
Yeah, and his actions and his words matched up.
Yes, exactly. So that's just all over one lunch. So I get done with that, and
that must have been one, was it a long lunch?
It was a couple hours.
Couple hours. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I just remember looking in his eyes and just thinking, oh my gosh, I could just love him forever, for the rest of my life.
Aww.
And so I do believe that love at first sight can happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the next day, or the next couple of days, we were texting each other. Well, that was like on a Wednesday or Thursday, and on Saturday, we talked on the phone, and I said, well, what do you think? Should we go out on another date? And he says, no, I don't think so. And I said, why? And he's like, well, I just got things that I need to work through, and I just don't think it's the right time. And I said, okay. And so, and I was just crushed. I just got off the phone and I was crying because I really felt like the Lord had orchestrated that.
Well, yeah.
And more than with any other person I've ever met.
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
to go on this amazing date, and then the next time is like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah. So I deleted him out of my phone so that I wouldn't be tempted to call him or text him or anything like that. And I deleted him and didn't hear from him.
That must have been hard.
It was hard.
Yeah, I bet.
And didn't hear from him again. And 3 weeks later, I get a text, and it says, hey, I was wondering if you would be willing to do a do-over. And I go, well, who is this, Bill? And he goes, of course it's Bill. Did you delete my number? And I said, of course I deleted your number. So we went and we did the same place, went to lunch, and the first thing, when he sat down, the first thing I said to him is, what changed your mind? Mm-hmm. He said to me, well, I have been praying about this for the last 3 weeks, and I finally feel like God said that you're the one. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're supposed to be in a relationship, and this is who he has for me. And so that just, of course, made my heart happier than ever. And so we just started dating from that point on. And that was in September and October. And then we got married the following July. And my favorite number is 13. And so we got married on July 13th. And we had, in between that time, I started realizing that there wasn't something quite right with him. He didn't remember things, and he'd get confused about things. And I had several clues, but I didn't know what was coming. And finally, I started talking to him about if he had Alzheimer's or not. And he had been tested for Alzheimer's, but he had forgot that he'd been tested for Alzheimer's. And his job, he worked at his job for 44 years, and he was a regional manager, and he was a salesperson, and the people at his work were covering for him for about 2 years before his boss flew up from California and told him that he was retiring. So I started putting 2 and 2 together about the things that he was missing. I asked him one time, should I, in a place we had stopped to get gas, and I go, okay, do you know how to get to your house from here? And he says, oh yeah, I know how. So, and then we start going, and like, he doesn't have the slightest idea.
Yeah.
So he calls me and he goes, I think you better lead because I can't figure my way out of this mess.
Yeah.
So just things like that.
So there was all of this kind of going behind, but what did it feel like to be respected by a man? To be, you had this like love of your life, and you got married, and what did it feel like? And what was a day in the life of, and tell me more about that. That's what I wanted to hear.
Okay, so it was amazing. I mean, one time I asked him, we were laying in bed one night, and I said, so, Bill, if there's something that you don't like about me, you need to tell me, because I don't know what it is, and if you don't tell me, I can't change it. So if you tell me, I can fix it, you know?
Yeah.
And he laid there for a minute, and he goes, well, there is one thing, and my heart just sunk to my toes, and I was like, oh my gosh, why did I even ask him this? And he says, your big toes kind of look funny. And I'm like, I started laughing. I go, okay, if that's the only thing that's wrong with me, I take you for the rest of your life. And so, I mean, he was just so sweet like that. And he would he would just give and give, and he let me talk. And I never never once did I keep a secret from him until his Alzheimer's progressed, and he was.
Yeah. And like, how was the communication? We
talked about everything.
Yeah.
We talked about everything. He told me about his life. He'd been married twice before. He had 2 boys, one from each lady. And we just talked about everything, and we were absolutely open and honest. And I had never been that way with anybody because I never felt like I could trust them to let me be myself.
Yeah.
And Bill let me be me.
Yeah. And in the Bible, I mean, really the tenets of marriage in the Bible come with cognitive, emotional, psychological, and physical intimacy. So you had all of that with Bill.
Right.
Yeah. And did that heal anything from your childhood?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It was just like I started to bloom. Mm-hmm. It was like I was like this flower that was tightly bud because I didn't want to let myself out, and I just started to bloom, and I became just this beautiful flower. And the way that he would look at me was so amazing, and I didn't even know it until one of my girlfriends told me, do you know how he looks at you? And I'm like, no. And so then she shows me a picture that she took of us.
Aww.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And
so you got encouragement and support and love, all unconditional.
Unconditional.
Yeah.
There was no stipulations for that love.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And what happened was, because he loved me that way, I could love him that way. Yeah. I loved him wholeheartedly, and I loved him. I took as good a care of him as I could possibly take care of him, and we just loved doing fun things. We bought an RV after we'd been married for a couple of years. We bought an RV, and we would just take off in our RV and go for weeks at a time.
Aww,
and take these nice, wonderful trips. And it was like, we always either lived with his son in his house up in La Center, or we lived here at my dad's house with my dad. And so we never had lived on our own. Mm-hmm. So whenever we would go out in the motorhome, it was, we'd be by ourselves.
Yeah.
So we'd do things like sing to the top of our voice, and he'd let me sing even no matter I didn't sound good. And I always had I never have been able to carry a tune, and he'd let me sing to the top of my voice. And we just would do a lot of, I wanted to make a lot of memories with him. Mm-hmm. Because of knowing that we had him diagnosed, and he did have Alzheimer's. Yeah. So I did everything in my power to make happy memories, and he just went along with it. And he was really so sweet, so kind, and everybody loved him. And he was also very active, physically active throughout his life. And he, one night, my dad, after he left here, my dad says, "Do you think he's done all those things that he's been telling us about?" And I go, "Well, I've never caught him in a lie or anything before." And a couple weeks later, we went up to his where he was born, and we went to his class reunion, and all of those kids confirmed everything that he had told me about his childhood. So again, it was reiterated with me.
Reconfirmation.
He is who he says he is.
Yeah.
So
you finally got to have true love in physical form, in the form of Bill as a man in relationship. You know, I mean, how wonderful to have that experience.
It was a blessing beyond
that's
compare.
Awesome.
So
I have a few more questions for you. I love hearing about Bill and just what he brought to you, and just that you realized and felt true love. And you know, the eyes glisten when you talk about Bill, and you're just uplifted. Your countenance and your attitude and your positivity just are like amazing. And you know, I'm glad that you had the experience, and I hope that each and every one of us gets to have that experience of true love in our life. I have a few more questions for you, Gayle.
okay.
Does true love include loving yourself or being your own true love?
Yes. I feel like from the time I met Bill up until now, I feel like I have gone through so much growing and learning to love myself and learning to be okay with who I am and not being judged by other people, and just, you know, I don't care if they judge me anymore. It's not important to me. What they think of me is their problem. It's not my problem. I can be who I am, and I feel like for the first time in my life I love myself. And I'm 64 years old.
Young.
And that's a long time to not like who you are, you know? So I definitely feel like I love myself now, and I can stand for the things that I believe in.
Yeah. And one of the things that you had shared with me is that you'd had a long time in therapy with different therapists. And part of this turning point with loving yourself came from working with a life coach.
Right.
Could you share that with me?
Oh my gosh, I started seeing a life coach a couple months after Bill passed away, and I started seeing her, and she would just talk to me, and she would make me think about things, and she would make me like it was never easy questions. It was hard questions that made me go deep inside, that I had to figure out and give an answer to. And because I don't like to lie, and because I you know, want to be as real as I can, I would take those questions seriously. And it was during COVID, so we were doing Zoom meetings, and I would just write down notes and notes and notes of things that she said. I still go back to those notebooks and look through them, because there was so much good that came out of the life coaching. So much that I understood about myself and why I did things. And at one point, my friend that had flown up to Alaska to drive down back home with me, she had gotten married, and her husband explained to me one night about what the limbic system is. And how when we have a trauma, we either deal with it with fight or flight. And it was the first time in my life that I understood the way he explained it to me. It was the very first time in my life that I understood why I had gone promiscuous, why I had went to the men, why I had looked for love in all the wrong places, you know, and what made me tick. And it changed, and that we have an opportunity, and my life coach was so good about keeping this in the forefront of my mind. Change the way you think. Look, you know, our limbic system has these channels in them, and they're ingrained in us. And so when something happens, and were triggered about something, when I would go to a man because I was just, fretting about something, instead of going to a man, I would say, no, I, I'm, I'm a godly woman and I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I would just remind myself, no, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be with someone that doesn't love me.
Yeah.
And especially after experiencing the kind of love that I had from Bill, I did not want to be with anybody that was not going to love me for what I'm worth.
Yeah.
And
going back to the limbic system, I think that was a really great explanation of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And really going back to your childhood, you had that little piece in you that was missing. When you were born, that whole thing that your mom gave you because of the trauma of your father being killed and her husband being killed, you had this little missing piece in that. And so, you were searching for love in all the wrong places, and you would try to fill that hole by the coping mechanisms, and then getting, with understanding of all of that and knowing how your body's operating and your mind, that's an incredible moment to understand the thoughts. And, to go a step further, part of my work is about helping women to decouple what's going on in their body. There could be anxiety or depression or, other things that are driving those coping mechanisms. And through self-care and taking care of yourself, along with the thought work, those things all create new pathways,
right?
From today moving forward. Whereas, I love therapy, and I've done more than my fair share of therapy as well. And I love the therapists that I have worked with. However, there just wasn't this education and deep question that was really helping me to change behaviors going forward. And it sounds like the same thing for you, is that, in therapy, you're dealing with behind, and you're not really thinking about today moving forward, right. And really
how to move on.
Yeah. And with minute details, you're like, oh, I've got this thing here, and this is how this all plays out. It sounds like you had that with your life coach.
Yes. and the night that my friend's husband explained the limbic system to me, and then I confirmed it with my life coach the next time I talked to her. But the night that happened, I remember it was the 4th of July. And I remember going to bed and thinking to myself, and just kind of laughing and going, Lord, this is it. This was the broken piece that was so broken in me that I did all those things. And it was just like, I just had such a joy and a peace in my heart, because I knew finally what the answer was to a question I've asked myself all my life.
Yeah.
And it was a trauma response.
And the other thing is that in your limbic system, because you had your relationship with Bill, it allowed your nervous system and your everything to experience that and have an experience in body of what that would feel like to be encouraged, to be loved, to be supported. So you had this wonderful time that maybe might have greased the skids for that amazing thing.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
It's kind of like this whole, from what you're sharing, it's mind, body, and spirit healing that needs to occur for true love, And I mean, you've done an incredible amount of work in this lifetime, GAYLE, to figure out the little nugget, that little key. You had the key that went in to unlock everything.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing that you have yourself. God's got you got yourself, and you know what love is, and it was a trauma response.
And I love myself for the first time ever.
Yeah. Awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that when women can say that they love themselves and not cry. Like, I am enough.
Yep.
That used to really trip me up. I am enough.
And that's one of the things that I like to tell women, because most of us don't feel like we're enough.
Yeah.
Most of us feel like we got to do more. We got to do this. We're not doing this right. We're not doing that right, and all of that kind of stuff. And what the Lord wants us to know is that we are enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he will give us the strength to face the trials.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how I could have done any of that without the Lord.
Yeah.
You know?
It's beautiful.
And I mean, I have to give him the glory because he's the one that's brought me through. And even when I told him that he was not enough, he still was right there beside me through hell for 4 years. He walked with me all the way through it.
Yeah.
And when I was ready to return, he ran after me to come get me.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And then, does self-love play a role in attracting and being in love with another?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've never had, I've always been kind of a flirt. So I've never had trouble getting a boyfriend or that kind of stuff. Well, now that I love myself, I don't present myself in the same way. And I don't feel like I need the attention. And really, I'm holding out for somebody that, because I told the Lord after Bill died one day, I was getting ready one day and I looked at the mirror and I just said, Lord, whoever you bring me next is going to have to be so amazing.
Yeah.
To
absolutely.
top Bill.
Yes.
You know?
100%.
So,
yeah.
So yes, I really do think that being able to love myself, even just what I told you earlier about, I did date somebody for about 6 weeks, and all the time I was just like, I don't like that. I don't like that either. And I don't need to have that. And I don't need to be treated like this. And so it really has made a difference in my life.
Yeah. In dating, in your life, dealing with the death of Bill, and dating and feeling whole being single. You know, that's incredible work.
It's been amazing. Yes.
And I think you've shared a little bit, but I would love to hear just your shorter answer. What is the biggest struggle with your own self-love? Do you have anything that you struggle with, like currently now, or, you know, that might trip you up about self-love every now and then?
Well, my weight, for one, you know, just because I haven't taken the time to really do anything about that yet. And I say yet because I know it's coming. Yeah. And I believe that it has something to do with the limbic system.
Yep.
Because it's a response. It's another response for trauma.
Well, and there's just, you know, I mean, having the death of a spouse, I mean, there's a lot of cortisol. There's a lot of stress response that's there. And, you know, when I work with ladies, you know, sometimes it's like, oh my God, I'm not healed yet. And I'm like, I've been like 2 years laying on the couch and, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, that is sometimes that can be part of the whole, your life cycle is I got to take some time out and just be, you know, be in your person.
And that's what I did. I took, I saw my life coach for almost a year. And then, and I was also seeing a counselor from church. Yeah. And I was doing a lot of work. And that summer, I decided that I was going to take off the summer. And what has happened since then is I have grown used to being on my own. I enjoy my own company. It used to be you put me in by myself for very long. I was uncomfortable and couldn't, you know, I just couldn't do it. But I have gotten to the point where I enjoy my company. I enjoy being alone. I don't have to have a crowd around me. I don't have to be the center of attention anymore. Yeah. You know, and that's my personality. Yeah. And so it's just made such a huge difference. And I think that, what was the question?
What was just your biggest, and I think you nailed it, is self-care.
Okay.
You know, that you haven't really been taking care. I mean, your biggest struggle with your own self-love. And it sounds like, and I think this was the same answer from last time, is just struggling to take care of yourself in those things, you know, to help you feel better. Yeah. You know, making time for self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of that is because I'm a caregiver.
Yeah.
And so, definitely. That takes a lot out of me. Yeah. And so by the time it's time to take care of myself, you know, I don't have time and I'm too tired.
Caregiver burnout. Right. You know, caregiver burnout, you really caring for somebody else. Like it's you don't want to do that for yourself. I mean, you just need time to chill. So I get that.
And I have gotten to the point where I'll actually take off for a weekend or even a week.
Yeah.
And I was in Alaska for 3 weeks this summer.
And she goes to the beach quite a lot. So that's kind of cool. And then any biggest struggle with loving another? Is there any struggle with loving another?
Well, I still have time I still have a hard time trying to love people that irritate me.
I think we all do. We all have that. That's a good answer.
But I haven't been in a relationship really since Bill passed away. So, I don't know. I feel like I have a ton of love to give. And, like one of the things when Bill and I were married was that we had both been married before and we both knew what we did not want. Mm-hmm. And so we purposely set out to not do those things to each other.
Well, and I think when you get to this point in life, you know a lot more about what you don't like and less about what you do like. And, sometimes in the second part of life, it's all about figuring out what you do want based on what you have had in the past, what hasn't gone right. Yeah. So it's a complete flip of, I've got to choose this and figure out for myself. And that's hard. It's hard work to figure out, what is it that I like to do instead of just riding along.
Exactly. My life coach would ask me that all the time. She would say, well, what do you want to do? Yeah. What do you want to have? Let's make plans for your future. Let's do this. And it was so hard for me to think of just myself.
Yeah.
Because I have to think about everybody else. And, I was Bill's full-time caretaker, and that was horribly hard. And so it's been an adjustment for me to actually allow myself to sit on the couch and read a book if I want to.
Heck yeah.
Even when it's sunny outside, because you think it's sunny outside, I got to be outside. But sometimes I don't. I lay in my air-conditioned house and read a book.
Well, and with some of those questions, like, what's your favorite color? It sounds so minute, but why? Like I always thought green was my favorite color. And then when I really thought about it, I'm like, I think it's pink. It's pink, and really claiming that, that choice in life. And what are those life skills that you've had to learn or develop being in relationship with another? You were in multiple relationships where there wasn't effective communication, there was some abuse, there was other behavior. So what sorts of things have you learned being in relationship with Bill or with the life coach that are like helping you with other people today?
I trust more than I used to.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
I'm determined to be honest as much as I can. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying that sometimes I don't say a white lie or something like that because I'm not perfect in every way. So, but I can say what I'm thinking, and if somebody says, "Hey, do you want to come do this?" I can say no. I don't. So.
And not be racked with guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, I gotta go.
That's a big deal.
Oh yeah. 100%.
So, and feeling like, one of my coaches or my life coach, what she said to me was, I have the right to say no, and their reaction to that is their problem, not mine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I've practiced that a little bit here and there. I have people in my life that are hard to get along with, but I do it.
Yeah.
And
better life skills. And no is an answer all on its own. You don't have to
justify
it
no is a sentence.
And explain and beat around the bush and try to make the other person feel better. That's their reaction, and I think that's very freeing when you finally get to that point. And do you have a self-care plan? What do you do for yourself, like to help in keeping you walking on this earth upright? Any spiritual practices?
I read the word.
Yep.
I journal. I get together with ladies and do a Bible study here in my home. I have girlfriends that we do activities with that are Christians, that we are, we encourage one another, we pray for one another. And
so you sound like you have a great inner circle.
My circle is getting bigger with friends, and
nice.
I really like that.
Yeah, and are there more women that are fitting more of the boxes of being a friend? Have you attracted different women to this inner circle that you wouldn't have if you hadn't done this work?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure that's some that has happened.
And my last question for you, Gayle, is what's the biggest piece of advice for women that you'd like to share about finding true love later in life?
I would say, first of all, don't let the enemy get in your head to make you feel like you're not worthy of finding true love. And believe who God says you are, which you are a daughter of the King, and you are made in his image, and he loves you and has been with you, all of your life, whether you believe in him or not. And I think just don't put so much on yourself and take on other people's responsibilities because just to try to fill that hole, that hole where God or love is supposed to be. We fill it with all kinds of other things, shopping and eating and drinking and alcohol or drugging and all of those things that we've talked about. And there's forgiveness no matter what you've done.
Yeah.
And if I shared my entire story, there's been a lot of forgiveness.
Yeah.
And one who has been forgiven much can love much.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Gayle.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you for spending the time with me to do this interview with Resilient Hearts and Untold Love Stories later in life, and for sharing about Bill and your journey to getting to true love. Maybe everybody needs a tattoo with daughter of the king. With all of that. Well, I want to say thank you for being vulnerable and open to share this on video. I think that for me to have witnessed it firsthand, you were my very first interview, and just to see, I have to thank you so much. You're going to be in my mind. You're going to be the story that I tell when I'm coaching other women, because again, I started my coaching journey helping women heal from toxic relationships. And then there's been this, kind of true love makeover was part of it. And now infinitively it is be your own true love. And I have to say, just sitting across and hearing the audio version, which I finally have researched how to put that online. So I will put the audio version of our interview, the first one, up. But that seeing the sparkle and feeling the energy of you talking about Bill and just your attitude and your countenance, your demeanor, everything like that, it really changed something in me to believe again in true love. And
I'm so thankful.
Yeah, and hearing about like the journey of God weaving your healing story, and it really was instrumental to me. And I just feel like that there's a gift to be had for other women who may be struggling with inner trust, who might be struggling with having been in multiple toxic relationships, who have been struggling with childhood trauma and not understanding those piece parts that it is still possible. And even though we might be have a few extra pounds or a few extra wrinkles or whatever.
Or you're getting old like me.
Whatever that is, that there's still hope and there's still possibility, and having, the experience, and not trying to move through it quickly, just allowing life to flow. That, what if it's this year, or what if it's next year, whatever. Like, if it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. There was a chink that came off when I was talking to you, and then I've had a few other interviews with other ladies, but God brought you to me for this reason. And I think the other thing was, he is good. You shared with me that you have this testimony and that you'd always wanted to tell the story.
Right.
And could you share that with me? Like, you kept saying, I have a testimony, I have a testimony, I have a testimony. And, where did that come from?
From all the hard knocks in life.
Yeah.
All the wrong decisions I've made. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I just feel like there's nothing in my life that has happened or that I've caused to happen in my life that God can't use to show somebody else that they can have the same kind of relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
Or not even the same, but they can have a close relationship with the Lord, because if he did it for me, he's going to do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I believe that with all of my heart. And I am so thankful that you and I met. And I am, it's totally Jesus, because, he's allowed those things. And because of what I've gone through, I can share with other women. And I'm so thankful that he used that in your life. Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that with all of the twists and turns with my own coaching program at helping women, it just really changed the outcome. Like, it was just incredible. I remember driving back, I was like on cloud 9. I'm like, this is God. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this? And just all of that. So if you are interested, and want GAYLE as a public speaker or a speaking engagement or something else, please get in touch with me. I'd be more than happy to hook you guys up. So just GAYLE would be an incredible motivational speaker to have at an event or something else that you might be planning with your church or a small group or whatever. I'm sure she would be open to that. So go ahead and get in touch with me. You've got my email in the bottom of that. But it's really been an honor, GAYLE, and to have this time with you and to be able to share with other women. And maybe that will allow other women to really believe that true love, be your own true love first, but there's a true love out there for you in all of that too.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.